Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Chris Flick here. This is the Weekly Word podcast, episode 1 I'm going with here. We're every week on Sunday, 7:30 a.m. on the dot. I send out a newsletter to everybody that's on my mailing list. And I just go over some of the things that have been going through my mind, some fitness stuff I've been trying, some things that I've read, some interesting articles I've read and want to share, some songs, some movies, documentaries, whatever. Just some cool, what I deem is cool and interesting things. I try to get it out to the people that kind of come to the gym or friends from the past, anybody here, just to kind of stay in touch with some people and give them like a little weekly message from Chris here. So that being said, January 1 happened. Today's the 8th of January. New Year's resolutions 1 week into it. Hopefully everybody that set one is kind of accomplishing what they want to do. Now back in the day, I used to kind of criticize these things a little bit in the sense that it's like, why wait? Why wait for January 1 to make a change? Why not do it right here, right now? That being said, I still set a resolution for myself. And for me, it's more of a challenge. It's more about trying to take something in my own life, my own personal life, and kind of just take it up a notch, take it to the next level. Personal goal and kind of a business goal. So on the personal side of things, I'm trying to eat a salad 80% of the days this year. So it's going to be hard to track. So I'm basically using a 66-day calendar. You know, I read this book back in the day. A friend of mine lent it to me called The One Thing, whereas basically they did a bunch of research, looked at a bunch of studies, and they found the 66th day was kind of the sweet spot for behavior change. For some people, it might have been 40 days, other people 17, other people 222 days. But 66 days was kind of that mean, that average, that sweet spot where it's like if you could get to that point, majority of people that got to that point ended up being able to sustain that habit. So one end of the spectrum, eating a salad every day, and I'm trying to be 80% good on that. The second part is kind of a podcast, kind of a business thing. I'm going to try to pump out something on the interwebs, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, maybe something like this. Just try to do something every day, you know. Sounds simple enough, right? But I'm terrible at it. I want to try to feature some more people that come in here, feature some of the programs that we have running. Then for the podcast, you know, get out there, get some suggestions on books, get some suggestions on people to talk to, stuff like that. So that's my resolution. For those of you out there, good luck. Keep attacking it and don't get discouraged. Like I use that salad as an example. You know, 80% is good enough sometimes. You don't have to be perfect. Don't get discouraged if you drop off for a day or two. So with all that being said, what is the best way to accomplish this stuff, right? So we have the wagon that we're on. The New Year's resolution is our wagon. So that has been defined. We want to stay on that wagon for as long as possible. But what happens when we fall off that wagon? How are we going to respond? How are we going to act? It's a guarantee that you will fall off. Now, the scary side of thing is the more you do fall off the wagon, the easier it becomes. So one thing that we need to do in that circumstance is to kind of control the environment. So, for example, I didn't want to drink, all right? New Year's happened. I'm like, dude, I can't really afford time-wise to go out late that night, sleep terrible, maybe feel a little bit under the weather the next day because I consumed alcohol, didn't go to bed till 2 a.m., because you watched a ball drop, you're at a friend's house, all that crap. So I'm like, I'm just not going to drink. I'm still going to go out with friends. But I knew in my mind that the environment that we went out in, it kind of had to be controlled. So as we're planning this stuff, I'm thinking, what could we do? What could we do? Some people suggested a few restaurants. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Let's just go out to eat, whatever. Go back to my friend's house, watch a ball drop, hang out with some friends, laugh a bunch, have some fun. Great. It all worked out fine. No alcohol consumed. Because back in the day, anything could I would find any excuse imaginable. Oh, it's Thursday night and there's a football game on. Let's go out with some friends and drink beer. I kind of want to not do that stuff, you know. I just don't function optimally if alcohol is being consumed. So I'm like, I got to cut this thing out. So what I do, I just try to take control of the environment. It doesn't always work out, but really, I mean, you just need a good support system that is going to support you in the sense of like not trying to throw you into those environments that you don't want to. So even if you're not totally open with it, like, hey, I don't want to do that, you don't have to communicate that with everybody, but you just start hanging out with people that are kind of like mind. You know, if you're somebody that doesn't want to eat pizza anymore, but you hang out with people that eat pizza 5 days a week, you're probably going to eat pizza at some point. We only have so much willpower and only so much discipline and so much strength. So one thing to do here is to create these habits, create an action that you want, to achieve. On the positive side of things, you need to ingrain that habit and just practice it over and over again. I mean, the definition of action is something that is consciously willed and may be characterized by physical activity. An action can become habitual with practice, right? We're talking about practice here. So on the good side of things, it's great. You know, you want to practice this behavior and over again, and it's going to be ingrained, and it's going to be easier to adhere to it and sustain it. On the negative side of things, if you continually fall off the wagon, once you know what that wagon is, if you keep falling off of it, that action becomes easier and easier, and it's going to be really hard to sustain that action over time. Boom. That's New Year's resolution in a nutshell right there. What's going to get you to your resolution? Action and activity, not sitting idle, being positive and trying to move yourself in that great forward direction. What I've been reading now, taking a little change up here. I got a book for Christmas, which was now, what, 2 weeks? No, 2 weeks to the day. It's called A Warning, all right? It's written by a man who goes by the name of Anonymous. Basically, this guy was like a senior Trump official, wrote an op-ed for the New York Times, maybe. Now he publishes a book. Typically, I'm not reading this type of stuff. I'm not reading this day to day. Unfortunately, I'm not totally up to date on current events. I like history, so I'll read about this presidency probably in 10 years, 15 years. But I don't even know if that's a good thing. This book's different. This book is talking about what's going on right now. And obviously, it is not a pro-president book in the sense that this guy apparently still works on the cabinet, still works for the man, and, you know, in his words, they're just trying to do damage control. But without getting into all of that stuff and the minutia from the day-to-day dealings of office squabbles and cabinet members resigning and people getting fired, there's two things that stood out. There's poor leadership all around. Republican Party, Democratic Party, there's no real great leader that is really stepping up and like really igniting the people and getting them fired up. I mean, you could say on one side of the spectrum that Trump did that, and that's how we ended up winning the election, because his counterpart there was kind of bland and boring, and nobody really got too excited about that person as the president. But then the decision that this man is making, according to the book, questionable at best. And then the mob rule mentality, like we were saying, people are now, like, there's the division between each side of the party is the greatest that it's ever been. They looked at 5 factors historically between the two parties. This is the first time ever that there's not one. So the 5 key points for the Republican Party and the 5 key points for the Democratic Party, 0 crossover. There's not one thing that they're kind of working on together. That's a little bit scary, and it's unfortunate because all it's doing is creating a bigger divide. So, and then there's like this mob mentality where I'm part of this group, you're part of that group, I'm not working with you, I don't agree with you. It could be on one thing. I mean, you could agree with that party on 5 things. Say there's 20 topics, you might agree with them on 5 of them, but they're not even hearing it out. They're not even playing that game. It's either one way or the other way, my way or the highway. And that's a little bit scary too, and it leads to problems. And when you don't hear, you know, I was reminded of this Aldous Huxley quote when I was reading A Brave New World Revisited, where if like you don't take stuff in and if you don't expose yourself to certain things, there's nowhere for you to kind of expand your mind. And Huxley wrote, any bird that has learned how to grub up a good living without being compelled to use its wings will soon renounce the privilege of flight and remain forever grounded. So if you don't go out there and explore new ways to learn, new ways to kind of challenge yourself, you're going to be kind of forever grounded like that bird was, and not being able to use its wings and explore other things. I think it's a tremendous quote, one that I love, one that I've used in a previous podcast. But when I'm reading this stuff here and I'm like, this sounds like Aldous Huxley, a man written some books in the 20s and then in the 50s. He wrote The Brave New World Revisited, I think 25 years after Brave New World, and it was scary what's going on. Which I recommend reading that book, Brave New World, and then Brave New World Revisited. Revisited is taking a look at some things that went on in the 40s and 50s. And the mob mentality, how to ignite the people, how to get people excited for a cause, almost how to manipulate people in your direction. That's what the Brave New World Revisited is. Not that I want to do that personally, but I'm trying to understand kind of the psychology behind some of these mob mentalities and what the heck's going on in this world, especially in this country. More in this country, not the world, because the world is even more messed up, I feel like. Next thing, what I've been listening to. All right, I went to a concert, Hosier concert. This has been talked about before. The dude was pretty awesome. The guy sings songs with purpose. They just had that Golden Globes this week, and it's like, these celebrities, whatever, they shouldn't use their platform to give their opinions on things. But in my mind, I'm like, you have a platform. Not everybody has a platform. If you want to bring up a cause, you could bring up a cause. Because who else is going to do? You look back to these civil rights movements. Some of these athletes, some of these higher profile people, they had a voice, they had a platform, and they used their platform to try to bring up the civilization, so to speak. Hosier, when he writes music, music with a purpose, music supporting a cause, it's not just some pop song that means absolutely nothing. I like his music because there's thought that goes into his lyrics. That being said, Hosier, his opening act was this girl, Angie McMahon. She was awesome. She played guitar. She was by herself, played guitar in every song, just her guitar and her voice. It was kind of beautiful. She did a Fleetwood Mac cover, Silver Springs. Oh, pretty cool song. Didn't know the origins of the song. So I'm listening to Angie McMahon's version. It's different than Fleetwood Mac's. I'm listening to Angie McMahon, and I'm like, this is cool. Let me listen to the original. Oh, what is this song about anyway? Silver Springs? What is that? Oh, Silver Springs, Maryland. Stevie Nicks dated Lindsey Buckingham. They break up. They're in the band together. They break up. He's playing guitar on his own breakup song. How does this happen? Somehow she writes this song about she dumps a guy. This guy who's in the band, Lindsey Buckingham, is upset. Eventually he says, F it, I'm going to start dating other women. When he starts doing that, Stevie doesn't like it. Stevie gets pissed. She writes Silver Springs. It's this big breakup song. The dude's playing guitar in his own breakup song. There's one line in it. Stevie's motivation, basically in her quote here, I'm so angry with you, you'll listen to me on the radio for the rest of your life and it'll bug you. I hope that it bugs you. So she wrote this song thinking this song's going to play forever. Every time Lindsey hears it, he's going to be thinking of me and it's going to destroy him. One of the lines says, you'll never get away from the sound of the woman who loves you. And that's her voice on that song. It's crazy. It's a pretty powerful song. Angie McMahon's version is awesome. It's pretty cool. And at the end of the day, Stevie Nicks was like, we probably say more to each other than we ever would in real life when they're on stage singing it. Apparently there's some video circulating where he's like hammering the guitar and singing these harmonies loudly. There's another part where like 20 years after they wrote this song in the 70s, the 90s, this song didn't get prominent until the 90s because of record stuff. She looks over and stares at him and sings that part. You'll never get away from the voice of the woman that loves you. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty interesting. I dig it. Shout out to that song, especially Angie McMahon, because her version is pretty cool. All right, some gym happenings. What do we got going on here? We got a female athlete program about to kick off January 20. Basically, I was at a conference. ACL injuries are on the rise. They're up 400%. A female athlete is anywhere between 6 to 9 times more likely to suffer an ACL injury. There's a few factors, right? We're talking about just a girl's body. There's a Q angle. It's a quadriceps angle, basically from their hip to their knee. Female hips are a little bit wider, so as the hip comes, there's just too much kind of strain and pressure going on in the knee. As their hips are wider than their knee, where their knees are, they have this inward angle, this valgus angle. That puts a little bit of pressure on the knee. That's a Q angle. They have a smaller ACL, more susceptible to tear. Muscular imbalance is going on there. That could be a cause. Hormonal considerations, so on. There's a few factors that go into it. The number one risk factor for an ACL injury is being a female, and there's a few ways that we could combat that. So we can't affect their Q angle, but we could affect their muscular imbalance. We could affect their stability. We could make them more stable. There's a lot of ways that these injuries occur, and we could kind of get the brain and body connection going. We could teach them how to land properly so they're not landing with a locked knee. We could teach them how to cut properly so they're not cutting with a locked knee. We could kind of build some strength, some eccentric cushioning strength, that when they plant that foot in the ground, it's not so stiff and it's not a big time jolt. And the great thing about working with female athletes is, I would say, a decent chunk of them, especially some of the younger ones, they've never worked out before, so they have a clean slate. They have no bad habits. They don't have an ego. They listen to you. They respect you. They like to have fun. They might want to dance around a little bit and listen to fun, upbeat, crazy music. And as long as they're working, I'm cool with that. So we got this program going on. It's starting January 20. which is less than 2 weeks now. It's designed for the female athlete, age 11 and up. Great. It's a great demographic. I think it's a great age to kind of start learning some of this stuff and kind of ingraining good habits that will last a lifetime. It's not always about athletic performance. We want people to be healthy into their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and it's important to kind of ingrain some of that stuff now when they are like a teenager or 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever, all right? That's kicking off in a few weeks. If you know anybody, feel free to share this with some people. Really trying to get the attendance up in that because it's important demographic of individuals that kind of need the attention, need some work. Lastly, before I close this out, I'm closing this with a quote. Jordan Peterson is a guy that I like and a guy that I respect. One of his quotes was, "There's nothing more dangerous than a weak man." The weakness is in almost weakness of mind, weakness of courage, not necessarily weakness of body. Not having the ability, you look at some people that commit some of these atrocities, they are weak of mind, weak of, confidence in oneself, weak in the ability to kind of speak out. They feel oppressed. That is what he means by that. I think it's a great quote. Nothing more dangerous than a weak man. And I think it's 100% true. Now, guys and girls here, every week, Sunday, 7:30 a.m., the weekly word comes out. It's a little bit different than what I just talked about, but it's in a format. There's 5 bullet points. If you want to subscribe, if you like this stuff, if you want more of it, you go to brickhousestrength.com. That's my gym. Check it out. Or chrisflookpodcast.com. Join the mailing list there. We'll add you to it. And then be on the lookout for it every Sunday at 7:30 a.m. Hope you guys have a great day. Peace, everybody.